I'm very happy to be here as a member of the Santa Monica Chamber Board of Directors. I welcome all of you to this event. This is a very special event, ladies and gentlemen. It is one of the first events of its kind that the business community is coming together with the government, representatives from LA County, representatives from the city of Santa Monica, and NGO, nonprofit organization, U.S. Resiliency Council. We're very happy to have Evan Reese flying down here from Northern California to be here. So this is a special event. Why? The fact is, as Laurel mentioned, it's no longer the question of if, it's when the big one is going to happen. We know scientifically, I don't think anybody here in this room disagrees, or you wouldn't be here today. So I don't have to convince you of that fact. So the smart thing is to be prepared for the inevitable. And just imagine what would have happened if we had that 7.1 earthquake in our urban areas in Southern California instead of Ridgecrest. Some of the shakeout scenarios, which you're going to hear a lot of the statistics project that we could have had hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of damages, many of residential units basically destroyed, which as you can imagine it would create a very disastrous scenario because of what it is happening right now here in the state of California. Our biggest issue in Sacramento is housing, affordable housing. It is homelessness. And I don't know if some of you remember last year, it was on the cover of LA Times when the state of Arizona, 2,000 agencies were working together over a week-long exercise to prepare to receive what they called 400,000 refugees from California when the big one hits. Ladies and gentlemen, when I read that article, I was honestly embarrassed because I know how we're not prepared for the inevitable. And here we are, a neighboring state is preparing to receive our refugees. So I am here today my role was to talk about why is it important for the businesses to prepare, and why is it that not more people, not more businesses prepare themselves. Basically, I feel like there is a myth that it's too expensive to retrofit your building. And why is that? First of all, when you talk to a business person, most businesses are lessees. They don't own their own buildings. So immediately when you ask them, are you prepared for the next big one? And the first thing they say, well, I'm renting, I'm leasing my building. Therefore, I don't have the responsibility to be prepared. That's the first myth, ladies and gentlemen. If you are renting your building, you still have the same level of responsibility and liability, if not more liability than the owner of the building. Why? Because usually the building has a value. The business in the building normally has much more value than the building itself. or the aggregate of the businesses in a multi-story building or multi-unit building has more value than the building itself. So, therefore, the tenants, the occupants of these buildings have as much at stake as the owners of the building do. So, now what happens when the earthquake comes and a building is damaged? How does it affect an owner of a building or an occupant, a business of the building? First of all, the building gets red tagged, which means if it's damaged enough that the city officials feel that you cannot occupy the building, therefore you stop operating in the building. Therefore, whatever business that you're operating stops producing cash flow. And your employees cannot come to work. So they start, after a while, when they figure out that this may take a long time, they may start looking for other jobs. Your clients may start looking for other sources, which in California, as competitive as we are, and United States, and with the global economy, there's going to be somebody filling that gap. So there is a lot at stake. Then, other than the business and cash flow, ladies and gentlemen, there is an issue that unfortunately many business owners and property owners do not know. There has been a legal precedent established in the state of California 5 years ago on the appellate court, where an owner of a building, knowing that a building is a vulnerable building, did not started doing some retrofitting, but because the city given them a longer period of time, they decided to wait until basically the last minute to perform the retrofitting. This is in Paso Robles. It's called the Paso Robles case. A small building in downtown Paso Robles. San Simeon earthquake happened. The building collapsed. 2 tenants died. The families of these tenants sued the owners, and after going through the courts and then actually going to appellate court for an appeal, the families of these victims won $2 million judgment. The building, ladies and gentlemen, wasn't worth $2 million. So this was established where what they refer to as owner's negligence. LA Times has written about this time after time. I think we have copies of that article at our booth for those of you who are interested to look at that. So all of a sudden, not only your business stops, not only that you now, after a couple of months, the city would actually come and ask you to demolish your building if the building is not repairable. They're not going to just let you sit on that property. So now you have the cost of demolition of the building. When you start thinking about demolition of the building now, because most of these vulnerable buildings were built in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s even, they contain asbestos and they contain lead. So all of a sudden, a demolition that normally costs a couple $100,000 may cost you 5 times as much. So if you're an owner of a building, if you're an owner of a business, it doesn't matter. You need to think about the future, what happens to your business. You need to consult with the owners of the building to find out what is the status. Has it been identified as a vulnerable building or not? There are generally 5 different kind of vulnerable buildings, and City of Santa Monica has the most comprehensive retrofitting ordinance in the nation. They have identified every single type of building: unreinforced masonry buildings, industrial tilt-up buildings, concrete frame buildings, steel frame buildings that were built before 1996 when the code changed, and the soft story building. So we really have to be appreciative to the city's leadership and the business community's support to be considerate and thoughtful about how interrelated resiliency is with the sustainability of our city, which is we are so proud of here in Santa Monica.